3. And I'm Dave Rye. Our guest this morning, Erik Iverson, the chairman of the Montana Republican Party. Let's take as many calls as we possibly can. Let's go to line 2. Dave calling from Missoula County. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning. One reason I've gone libertarian is I've seen the Republican Party in Montana the last 30 years. I've been here 30 years. Go limp-wristed on things like letting rhinos run for governor. That would include Mark Roscoe, and going limp-wristed on the speed limit on I-90, for example, and allowing the Social Security number on the driver's license. They didn't have to crumble to this. It was the Montana legislature run by Republicans that did that.
You know what, Dave? I'm going to interrupt here just a second. I normally am just going to let Erik respond, and I'm going to be neutral. But in terms of calling Mark Roscoe a rhino, he was nominated by the majority of primary election voters. You know, both times he won the governorship. So you can't blame the party itself as much as you might want to blame those who vote on the Republican side in their primary for that one. You know, I mean, the Republican powers that be aren't responsible for who gets nominated, right?
Well, I guess in order for him to run, who was his competition in that?
He had Rob Natelson, law professor of U of M, challenged him in the primary the second time. First time, I don't know. I think Roscoe probably got it. No, Andrea Bennett was the opponent the first time around, who was state auditor at the time. So Roscoe did win a couple of contested primaries to get the nomination.
All right, how about the guy that ran against our illustrious governor the last time?
Bob Brown, yeah, that was a very competitive primary. You had Ken Miller.
Bob Brown deeply resents being called a rhino because I spent a couple nights at his house.
Sounds like it locally.
Well,
chemists and people of that nature.
Chemists.
Oh, Dan.
You mean
former mayor of Missoula?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, Bob. You mean Dave? I'm sorry. You mean because he works with chemists at the?
The U of M. The whole place is nothing but a nest full of pinkos, for Christ's sake.
Well, wait a minute. I don't use my dumper very often, but I did this time. Okay, Bob Brown works with Dan, chemist at the University of Montana. Brown representing a more conservative point of view, chemists a more liberal, and that's supposed to be a neutral organization. Anyway.
If you call that conservative, my God.
No, it's not conservative. I said it's Republican. Anyway, Dave, I appreciate your call, and I think you're living in the wrong place if you're in Missoula County.
Well, I live in Missoula. I can understand, some of Dave's frustrations. You feel like you're under attack there all the time when you're living in Missoula.
Right, exactly.
But I would just say, Dave, we need you back in the party. If you care enough about this state, we need to get you back in the Republican Party.
You know, I got to thinking when the Bush-Gore Florida vote brouhaha was going on in 2000, just after the election, the major spokesman for the Bush forces was Mark Roscoe.
That's right, and he did a great job. I mean,
yeah, he did.
The tide really began to turn when Mark Roscoe was the point person down there because he is so smart, he communicates so effectively.
Yeah, he is, and believe me, I'm to the right of both those guys, but they're both friends of mine, and I wouldn't call them non-Republicans. Yep. Okay, let's brace yourself. Robert from Columbia Falls on line 3. Robert, this is Erik. Erik, this is Robert. You two talk. I'm going to listen.
Good morning, Robert.
Until you've exceeded your allotted time, at which point I'll cut you off. Robert, what's up? Robert. Oh, line 3. Not there? Robert went away?
Scared him off.
Well, no, nothing scares him off. Nothing. Robert, call back. Okay. Hand me the sheet, Brian, so I know who else is there. If you would, and we'll take. Okay, line 1, Mary calling from Roundup. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, and God bless you.
Thank you.
We need to get back to God because He is the founder of this universe, and we are very dependent on Him, but we ought to act like a bunch of little young'uns that, I want to do it my way. I don't care what happens, but we need to think that without God, we can do nothing. And it's about time that we maintain God in our society, trusting in God we trust, because without the builder of the universe, we can do nothing.
All right. Thank you, Mary.
Not.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate your thoughts and your call. Okay, Erik, what's the official Republican position on God?
Mary nailed it.
You know what? I don't know how to get into this exactly. Maybe I won't even get into it.
Okay.
Generally, Republicans have been perceived, by both sides as more of the God party than the Democrats. The Democrats are the secular party. You want to just leave that one alone?
No, I mean I think that's probably a fair characterization of the perception that's out there. I don't know why. I mean, no political party, has monopoly on religion, nor should they. You got people of faith on both sides. I think a lot of times you get Republican candidates that seem to be more comfortable discussing their faith, and that may be what's driving it. All
right. So even the chairman of the state Republican Party isn't going to go so far as to say that God is a Republican. Right?
I would not be so presumptuous.
Think not. Okay. Is that Elena, I think, on line 2? Elena from Phillipsburg. We don't get too many calls from Phillipsburg.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
Eric, I have a few comments, and then I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're aware of the situation that we have here in Senate District 43, which consists of Deer Lodge, Powell, and Granite counties. And it has to do with residency.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an incumbent. Nobody's run against him several times. He's a Democrat. He hasn't lived in the district for a long time. There's a question as to what his residency is. He when he first started, his residency was with his parents, and then he got a job in Missoula. He went to school in Missoula. Now he owns a home in Helena with his wife, and they both work in Helena. So for all intent and purposes, it appears that this man does not live in the district. And I don't understand why the Republican Party is basically not doing anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my question. And it's a rhetorical question because I believe I know what the answer is. I understand that there's several Republicans that also don't live in the district that they're running in. So is this a case of one dirty hand is washing the other?
All right. Thanks, Elena. I appreciate the call, and I could just see the index cards whirring through your mind. Okay, this district.
That's right. No, it's
Anaconda.
Yeah, Jesse Lazovich is
the Jesse Lazovich case, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, the contention is that Jesse lives in Helena, but represents
that's right.
Anaconda.
Senator Lazovich, he lists his parents' address in Anaconda as his address when he files for office. The problem is he works in Helena at the Montana Department of Justice. He owns a home in Helena. His wife works in Helena. That's where they live. That's where they reside. My guess is they probably put their Helena address on their tax returns. So this is probably the best case, the best test case you could have for Montana law about residency. The problem is, under Montana law, it all comes down to the intent of the legislator. And the law says if you intend this place to be your home or intend to return back to this place at some point in time, then you can call it your home for purposes of filing for office. Jesse Lazovich has said, apparently, I intend to go back and live with my parents, with my wife, and all that. I don't think people are buying it, and I hope that the people in Anaconda will take that into consideration when they go to the ballot box, because they deserve to have a representative that lives there, that's talking to them, that's listening to them, that's experiencing their problems and their successes day in and day out. And Jesse Lazovich, he's a nice guy. He just can't do that from Helena. And so the Republican Party, we have tried. We've tried with Speaker Sales, tried to get Mike McGrath to investigate the matter, to follow the law. Attorney General McGrath refused to. There's not a lot of legal mechanisms. The man that's running against Jesse Lazovich has also filed some protests against this. We are trying and have tried to get Senator Lazovich off the ballot there. The problem is, right now, the judicial system is shutting us down at every turn. And I think when we get a Republican-controlled House and a Republican-controlled Senate, which we will have in November, we need to go in and we need to change this law and fix it. And I can tell you, Elena, it has zero. I'm not aware of any other Republicans that are in a similar situation to Jesse Lazovich. So this has nothing to do with one hand washing the other, one back scratching the other. We've tried on this one, and at every turn, Mike McGrath in the Attorney General's office has refused to enforce this law.
He's not real crazy about investigating fellow Democrats.
He doesn't want to investigate the governor. I'm sensing a pattern from our Attorney General here. Yet, if you remember back when Judy Martz was governor, boy, Mike McGrath couldn't wait to jump in to investigate $50 worth of phone calls that Betty Hill made when she was organizing a fundraiser. But he won't look into not only speculation, an admission of voter fraud, an admission of election tampering, and he won't lift a finger.
However, if you say that does it, I'm voting for Ron Waterman,
Well,
if you're
there's that.
if you're a capital punishment fan, well, who is? But I mean, if you're a capital punishment advocate, Ron Waterman has led the charge to get capital punishment abolished in this
This shouldn't be about an election issue, though. This is
No,
about
it shouldn't
doing
be,
your
but
job.
it's
about doing your job.
Yeah, but there's no way anyone's going to let his pre-prejudices totally be out the window. Anyway, 3 people waiting to talk to you. Let's take one more break. Not that I want to especially, but I have to sometime before 10 o'clock, so I might as well do it now. We'll come back and wrap up the show after that. If you're on the phone, stick around. Be right back. Let's get as many calls in as we can. Voices of Montana, I'm Dave Rye. Our guest, Erik Iverson, the chairman of the Montana Republican Party. Go to line 3, Marty in Great Falls. Hi, Marty.
Hi.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
I'm glad to hear some of Eric's comments. I think the Republican Party has got to also make a few changes. I've been witness to cases where old-line Republicans get up and rant and rave against certain businesses such as outfitters and stuff, and particularly fishing outfitters, and I know a couple people that lean Republican that are in that business, and they tend to be conservation-oriented, conservative economically, but they think, oh, geez, this is counter to them. They're all going to be bleeding-heart liberals, and that's not necessarily the case. The other issue that's kind of near and dear to my heart, because I consider myself a conservation landowner, is the movement to restrict the sale of property to state, federal agencies or conservation groups. That really is just counter to basic free enterprise of taking a willing buyer and a willing seller and restricting that.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get Eric's reaction. Thanks for calling. Appreciate it.
Well, I think if you look at the electoral map in Montana, the rural areas, the ranching communities, the agriculture communities, the places where folks make their living off the land, they vote predominantly Republican. And I think, I agree with Marty that we have to be conservationists. And I think the bedrock of the Montana Republican Party is rooted in conservation because, we make our living off the land. We farmed and ranched, and if we didn't take good care of the land, it wasn't going to take good care of us.
Okay, how come the group called Montana Conservation Voters endorses only Democrats, or seems to?
Because they are more concerned about politics than they are about policy. There, I said
it. And I'm glad. Do you hear? Glad. Line 2, Bill, Helena. Hi, Bill.
Good morning, Dave. Hey, my concerns, obviously, with some of the other callers has been the Republican Party becoming Democrat-light in that they seem to become the defenders of past liberal policies and advances by liberals and Democrats, and they're now defending those against more radical proposals. But of more concern is our dear governor, who's in his debate last night with Roy Brown. His supporters wanted to shout him down when he wanted to point out Barack Obama's anti-gun stances in the past. What is the Republican Party in Montana, or even what are you pressuring the National Party to come up with the past of Mr. Obama when he stood next to Mayor Daley and said no American has a right to have a gun, or when he voted twice to ban handguns in Illinois, or when he stood up for the D.C. handgun ban. And our governor, whereas I think he's a bit arrogant and mean-spirited and a bit duplicitous, he's no fool and he's not an ignorant man, so he knows these things. So that makes his defense of Obama's stand on guns a lie. Why aren't we pushing that a little bit more?
All right. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it, Bill.
And we are here in Montana, and it's one of the things I've been telling the McCain campaign nationally that they have to do in the West is push this gun issue more. Now, Sarah Palin obviously helps. But you're exactly right. And one of the reasons you're seeing the Obama campaign pulling out of places like North Dakota, Time magazine recently said that the Obama campaign is, quote, on life support in Montana. 2 back-to-back polls, national polls, respected polls, show John McCain up 11 points in Montana. The reason, number one reason, is guns. I mean, Barack Obama not only doesn't think people should own handguns. Those aren't my words. Those are his words. When he was a member of the Illinois State Senate, he voted to ban shotguns used for hunting. I will say it again. He voted to ban shotguns used for hunting. This is a guy who's completely out of step. The Obama-Biden ticket is the most anti-gun ticket we have ever seen running for the presidency of the United States. Joe Biden has a 36-year career in the United States Senate of voting against the Second Amendment. This issue matters, and it doesn't matter how many times Brian Schweitzer holds a press conference and lashes himself to Barack Obama and says, no, he's one of us. He believes in Second Amendment rights. Montanans aren't buying it. They are not buying it.
I've got two people waiting to talk to you who I'm not going to have time to take, and I apologize to them, and I thank them for calling and all that, but we're going to have to wrap the show up very shortly. Do you perceive press bias or media bias in some respects, anti-Republican?
Yeah, I think it's out there, but I'll be honest with you. I spent a lot of time working with reporters in Montana, and I think for the most part they're very fair.
Okay.
If you present an argument to them that is logical, that is structured, and that's honest, they're gonna give you a fair shake. And so I can't complain all that much about the most of Montana media.
Hope I've done that today. If Dennis McDonald of the Montana Democratic Party wants equal time, be glad to give it to him. Just give me a call. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Tuesday.